Are we ready to go?
Welcome, everyone, to the day 10 of the Blueprint for Peace for Humanity. It's Monday, July 17th, 2017, and this is a production of the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute. We'll be here with Mr. Keshe of the Keshe Foundation, who I believe is ready for us to listen to today's teaching. Hello, Mr. Keshe. Are you ready to go for today?
Yes, good morning, good day to you. Whenever you listen to these teachings, as usual, we try to bring some more knowledge and enlighten those who are interested in. I had to stop on Friday because, as you know, in the spirit and the way I work, I share knowledge. And it got to the point there was knowledge which I thought man should not have access to yet. And that brought a lot of pain and a lot of understanding how, for the first time, we had to let you think and bring things back in order. But I tried to carry on with the same topics, the same teaching, and at the same time, try to bring understanding in the right way. Can you please connect my laptop, please, to the screen? I'm still out, waiting to be connected. In so many ways, we have been teaching new knowledge on the edge of science, which is the world of the plasma physics. And this has caused a lot of people. In so many ways, it has enlightened a lot of people in what to understand about the new technology. Vince, I need to be connected on my laptop.
We don't see you in the meeting, Mr. Keshe.
I'm still waiting for it. It says, please wait the host to start this webinar.
Can you try re-logging in with that computer, please?
Okay, anyway, it's going through. When it comes in, I'll tell you. As part of the teachings which we had and we have, is that we need to understand the totality of the knowledge, the totality of what it brings, this knowledge. A lot of you understand the process of the physics and the plasma interaction. this process of interaction of a field which reads, started again. I'm trying to log into this. If it takes us into it. The process of understanding how the fields come to be a neutron, an electron, or a proton. And then, in so many ways, we have to wait for it. That's there. Nothing we can do. No. Don't take out that. Tell them there is no button. This process of connection and interaction creates a new way of thinking, new way of understanding. In so many ways, many of us have been waiting to understand the process of unified field theory. We were waiting to understand the process of connection and interaction. There's no connection. Of the fields that lead to gravity and magnetic fields, what we call shielding. In so many ways, we have to come to understand the process of the gravitational rotation and magnetical rotation. In many parts of the teaching, there has been a conceptual understanding, but not a reality understanding. And this is what we call, it's okay, it's still running. No, it's just running, just wait. The process of interaction in reality of the fields and how these fields create motion and create interaction, create fields or shield, create totality for everything which we understand. In so many ways, we have not understood. It drops off again.
You must open the VPN so you can
I cannot do without it.
So must use VPN, right?
Yeah.
Can I check the software?
Just 1 second, please. Sorry about that. We're trying to sort out the web problems which we have had for past few days. And until we don't come online, they can't sort it out. They're trying to see where the software interaction is interface that is causing the problem. What I'm going to do, I'm going to go on the screen. And we'll see how far we can go, and we can jump from one to another for the time being. What is important for us to understand is, as I said, we understood the totality of the work, but we didn't understand the dynamism of the work. One of the important things, this is a new knowledge. I would like it to be recorded. We've asked our transcribers now separate new knowledge that it can be published, doesn't stay as a teaching, but it's there to be done and people can go back on it. If you look at the structure of the atomic and nuclear plasma flow, which is directional field flow, we always looked in all of the work and nobody understood. In reality, you went all with the left and right hand turn. And I keep on saying it does not matter in reality, right or left, because the field forces in the universe decide on the turn. What you've been looking in the right and left and turn, in fact, the field themselves create the right or positive or negative directional flow, and not the man. Your rotation of the cores is irrelevant, because what happens, if you look at the core, the fields comes out, which the interaction of the fields dictates the rotation. This is why a lot of people in the plasma physics have problem in conceptually converting this knowledge to reality. If you look at the planet like Earth, what we see, North Pole or repulsion pole releases fields, and these fields in interaction with the fields which coming from all directions from the gravitational side dictate the rotation of the planet, not by rotation of the core trying to dictate the rotation of the field. This is why many of you had problem in reactors development, but we had to do it, we had to go through it. Now with the understanding of the plasmatic flow, it becomes very, very clear. When you place your gases in the reactor, you don't need to rotate your core. The most important thing is to create rotation of the gases. And these rotation of gases, because of the dynamic structure of the field, is created by how field forces are interacting and how we enforce the interaction of field forces. Go back on many teaching we've done, and there are many, many times I have repeated this. Earth rotates anti-clockwise. Venus collects clockwise. Uranus rotates on its axis. Earth rotates in an angle. Saturn goes on central angle. All these are created not by motor, but by the interaction of the fields which planet gives and it receives in respect to its position to the central point, which is the sun. So if you create a strong gravitational magnetic field, you can dictate which of your gases in which direction they can flow in your reactor. So if you understand this, you will understand there is no need for motors. There is absolutely no need for any kind of mechanical system to create rotation of the gases. If you remember, I've repeated this many times. We have videos somewhere in our archives where we see the gases flowing in one direction or another in a box. By positioning different reactors in different combination, you decide the speed of rotation, and the interaction of the fields of rotation, you dictate what we call the gravitational or the magnetic fields. As I said, we try to clarify a lot of ambiguities in the teaching. But you have to understand again that you could not understand this if you haven't tested it and practiced it in the matter state with reactors. The two mixture of the matter state rotation and plasma rotation has created a mayhem for man to understand. As I said,
Hello.
can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, okay. We dropped off on one line. We come back further till I can sort it out. They're working back. So matter state is condition of what we are used to, but not ourselves. This is the confusion which has to be clarified. Our body, our motion, our life, our physicality, our soul is not in the matter state of the environment, is in the Ganser state of the environment. So what does this mean is that with the confusion between us holding, let's say, the mobile phone with the hand, which is in the Ganser state, has created this confusion for us. And now that we have entered in the world of plasma physics, understanding of totality of the fields, it becomes important that we join the points of reference to what is the reality of the totality. Separation of each state of motion in respect to itself. And if we can separate these two from each other, very fast we come to understand that gravitational magnetical rotation can create the rotation of the gases without even a single motor. If you remember on the teachings of last week, I referred to, we have entered the dimension of no motor. And we start working on that level. So now you understand more in depth what we are looking for, what direction the whole technology is taking. Can you connect me with this laptop, please? In this process, it is important for us to be clear in respect to what we are dealing with. Are we dealing in the environmental gravitational magnetic field, in a state of plasma, or are we concerned and working with plasmatic GANs matter state in the environmental condition? This is what is important for us. This is what we need to understand. If we understand this point, we can very quickly
Hello, Mr. Keshe. I think I last heard if we understand this point, we can quickly...
we can build up into the space technology, which will allow us to work in a totally new dimension. Which means we should be able to operate in the fields and in the direction that we dictate our own destiny with our own thoughts without any control room. If you go back to all the teachings we've done over years, I repeated many, many times, the present computer technology is obsolete. It's absolutely obsolete if one understands the work of the plasma. We cannot communicate with the speed of present computers. We can communicate with the speed of thoughts, which is instantaneous, and it can cross the span of the universe. So what is important and what we understand from the teaching as we've done this morning is you've been looking for the rotation by rotation of the magnetic gravitational fields of the motor. But in fact, you have no say in the direction of rotation of the gravitational magnetic field. Good morning. This is part of the structure we have to understand. The new separation of the knowledge in a matter state or in a plasma state. But we have to be aware that anywhere in the universe, we can fall back on a matter state where The gravitational magnetic field at the point of the observation is coordinated and is created I get a notice in the background. I don't know what you're talking about, Stanley.
It's not a problem, Mr. Keshe. Sorry to interrupt you.
Pardon?
We can talk about it later.
Can it be sorted?
Yes, it can be sorted, but let's sort it out later and you continue now. Sorry to bother.
Okay, no problem. I saw your message. If you want, we can go out 5 minutes and come back because I need to use the platform to write and it keeps on breaking up.
Yeah,
if
we
you
can.
Want, I can go offline, you come in and sort it out.
Yeah, at any time. You just need to type.
Can you come in now? I'll give you the VPN. I'll give you the, what do you call it?
Yeah, okay. Okay, got it.
Screen share. Let me see, because it has to be done. Okay, I'm going to mute for 1 second to read you the number, yeah?
Okay.
This doesn't give me. Okay, 1 second, please. Okay, just 1 second, please.
Mr. Keshe, should we take a 5-minute break now, maybe? Put up a...
No, it's okay. I'll pass on channel to Stanley. Stanley is on your normal thing. I'll send you both the password and the thing. You're in. Can you get in?
Yes, I see it. I'll try to.
Okay, thank you. If you come and fix it because it's becoming really bad. Thank you very much. So what we understand and what we see is the totality of the work, that we start connecting the two dimensions to each other. We start working in matter state separate and in a GANS state separate. It is important for us to be able to reach this point, that we can correctly operate on both sides of the knowledge. What is important for us is how we can transfer the knowledge and translate the knowledge from the matter state by observation into plasma state, into the field state. We've had a good run with all these motors. We had a good run of understanding what the speed of motor means, but we came to the point of limitation that the speed of the GANs is beyond the speed of motors we have. It's for us to start dictating the rotation. It's for us to understand the totality, that we can bring in the position of motion without any motors, any engines or rockets or whatever we've been used to up to now. It is important for us to be able to translate the knowledge, not to get confused by two or somewhere between the two, lose one and then understand the other one in the wrong way. Stanley, I've given you access. If you can come in and fix it, please. I sent you everything.
The second code is missing.
It's there. I've sent you the second. I sent you the password.
Okay.
Oh, is there. Sorry, I wrote it, but I didn't press it. So it's with you now. Okay.
Yeah, okay. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks very much. So what we have to understand is Now that we understand the totality, the reality is the same or is no difference between being inside or outside a plasma. What you have inside dictates the operation of the fields internally within the plasma itself, and then what is leaked out in the barrier of the existence, then it becomes the outside interaction. Inside is the plasma of our cells of our body. Outside our skin is irrelevant because the fields of the body of the man, for example, does not finish with the skin of the man. The skin is a physical matter state in respect to the environment. If the size or the strength of the gravitational magnetic field of the planet was any different, then we'll find most probably, let's say, if the gravitational was slightly lighter, less strength, and gravitational in its position could have influenced less the magnetical, we most probably would have had a bodies much bigger, much larger. If the gravitational was stronger in strength, we should most probably be smaller animals. But again, the environmental pressure has a direct say on what can happen and what it is. In so many ways, we need to understand the reality and understand how things can be done that we can extend the knowledge to a totality of what we know, what we have, and be able to understand how to use it, that we can operate through one system, through understanding how internally the fields interact with each other and create their own condition, and in respect to the external fields, then they manifest themselves in a different strength and different connections. What this means, if we look, for example, into the structure of the sun, sun has its own internal magnetic field interactions, which creates its own gravitational and magnetical. It creates its own physical size, but when it comes to outside, its field forces span billions of kilometers beyond its surface. So there are two operations simultaneously running inside and out. This is important to understand. This is fundamental that we can go and be able to understand the interaction of the two sides. It's important that we can connect the fields, which is internal, which is external, which is part of it, and which is independently on its own. If you understand these, then we come to understand in what we explained last week, how neutron in creating in central field forces that we call the principal matter, then by change of the external field forces releases or creates a condition that it loses its principal matter and becomes the electron. If we could understand this in totality, then we come to understand the total structure in creation. One, collecting the maximum strength, and then in that process, building up to the point that the field force of the environment force a condition that the field forces inside, which is the central field forces, cannot hold on to the whole structure and create a new dimension. Then you have two pieces. And then the two pieces, one has to create another center of field forces for the plasma of the proton, while the electron itself is creating the atmosphere and magnetical gravitational field forces outside the boundaries of itself for confirmation of its existence. This is how gravitational magnetic fields, this is how universe works. And the sooner we understand, the sooner we can translate this knowledge, we understand one thing. Proton is like alkaline, is gravitational, where electron is magnetical and is giver, because it has to give, it has so much that in not giving dictates its position in respect to proton. So out of a balanced condition which is held within the structure, now we have created two separate structures, which one is a giver, which has stronger fields, becomes the electron. One is a taker, which is a proton itself. So this changes the whole understanding of nuclear atomic physics, even the plasma physics. These are new knowledges, and we have to understand these according to what they are and not according to what we wish them to be, and we have made that assumption and mistake up to that. Sorry, Stanley, can you get in? Because I see you can't get authorization.
The second code is incorrect, if you can check again.
Okay, please. Just 1 second, please. No, it's correct. Both numbers are correct.
Very strange.
The ID and your password are correct.
Yeah, it doesn't let me.
Please.
Okay, then we need to sort it out later. I don't know. I can't connect.
Okay, let me see if I can get you another one.
Mm-hmm.
No, it is okay. I'll give it the second code. Is this? I'll send it to you now, please. Try this one. The ID is the same, but the passcode is changed to this.
Okay, it's very short.
If you can get in, please.
Yeah.
I need the screen because I need to explain. The process in totality becomes part of understanding, and we have to understand what is internally is to do with the plasma, with the GANs. What is externally is to do with the environmental gravitational magnetic field, which dictates the state of the plasma. And this is what has been and what it is important for all of us. And the sooner we understand this, the sooner we grasp the idea, the totality, that what is, and what is out are two different state of conditions of the plasmatic gravitational fields. So we need to understand that what we create inside, it has to do with the entity itself, and how the entity leases from its magnetical to the outside dictates the condition of it in respect to its environment. And the interaction of the fields which come from outside in respect to the field forces inside dictate the speed of the rotation. In so many ways, how fast we go is what brakes we put from outside. We connect the motor to a wheel, but then we put a brake to just create a brake. If we don't do the brakes, the motor can run as fast as you like. But the external field forces is the brake which we added to the system. So in that process, becomes very easily understood. The atmospheric condition becomes the brake pads of the car. The internal forces are the engine of the car. And the field interaction dictates the speed of the rotation. If you put the brakes on harder, you go with the slower rotation. If you release the brakes, you go with a faster rotation. And this is nothing to do how fast the engine is working and how powerful the engine is. If we understand this and we can elaborate and understand what's inside the engine, what's inside the before the brake is in a gas state and creates its own fields. And what is outside has again its own gravitational magnetic field forces, but this time of a weaker strength, which physically interacts with the stronger. As the stronger field can expand as far as till it comes to a point that it has to conform and adapt to, then the field of the body of the man can span the whole dimension of the universe. These points, if understood clearly, changes the whole program of the space technology, the whole structure of the space technology, the whole fueling, the whole rotation, the whole destination travel. These are part of the understanding of the technology. So when we spoke about the neutron in becoming in balance with this environment or creating a pressure, then at that pressure point, the neutron creates a condition for itself, which becomes release of proton. In a way, we dislocate the center from the actual internal structure. We have to understand this, that we can expand on the knowledge and create motor-free systems. And when you get to this point, you understand, because the internal structure field forces are in a gas state, then they are on the level with the interaction of the thought lines of the man. This is how the space technology in respect to communication and travel are created. Are there any questions before we lose some more?
Does anybody in the panelists have a question?
Good morning, Mr. Keshe.
Good morning, Azhar.
The question regarding a neutron, when a neutron gives to proton and electron, neutron has a lesser mass than proton, I mean, because when it becomes proton, and electron loses some of the mass, and electron has lesser mass and higher energy field. So can you
repeat yourself again?
Okay, neutron gives to proton and electron. Electron has very small mass and high strength. Proton has lesser mass. Am I correct to say neutron no longer exists as a ghost because it gives birth to proton and electron?
No, in a way, when you're an apple and you split it into half, what happens to the original apple? It's still in two half, but in totality, when you put them the two together, you have yourself an apple, but you can't glue them back together again. Neutrons, if you understand, Stanley, is that okay now?
It should be for this session, and then after this session, we need to do the final.
Okay, no problem. So I will not be disconnected anymore, you think?
I see that the internet is very weak at this laptop, so probably you will be facing the slowdown, and but at least you would come back to Zoom as you should.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll come back to see what we can do. So, do you want to sign out, please? So what is important to us in so many ways is that we understand what and how what we are dealing with. A neutron does not just become a neutron to a proton and electron, but if you look at it in a longer way, in an extended operation, as I explained last week, you have a neutron, which now its center becomes the electron, and the balance becomes a proton. And this entity and this entity, due to interaction of the fields inside them, lead themselves to creation of their own central magnetic gravitational field point. So if this was neutron 1, now this becomes neutron 2 and neutron 3, and in the field interaction of the materials or matter states which created internally on each, in respect to the fields and forces of the plasma outside, this in turn itself becomes a proton and electron itself. This becomes again a proton and electron of itself. And this process will carry on. If you look at the book, we always said, book number 3, the unicos. What you see here, we always considered that the totality has been. Can you hear me, Rick?
Yes, yes, we can. Yes.
So if we look at this neutron decay, which we have accepted up to now becomes universal decay. It becomes the creation of unicos. And then what we see, the structure, as we go further and further, concentrates in more purity, in more smaller dimension, and stronger field forces of the creation. Because now the surrounding fields have been weaker, have left behind, and the center has become the new creation. So in a way, when we go to the submatter level, in the submatter level, we are dealing with the stronger gravitational magnetic fields of a higher order, not of a lower order at the matter state we are in. Because we understand the electron part becomes the stronger fields, where the submatter protons still lead to the creation of new protons and carry on. In the space technology of the future, our scientists will have a fields day playing with this thing, because it's absolutely easy. All you need to do when you go to the center, you travel by 1 million times 10 to the power of 1,000, where here you are 1 to the power of 10. If space scientists understand this, deep space travel becomes child's play. Because if you go low enough, then you go to the process of the strength of the origin of the creator. But then the question comes, what is a creator? What do we call a creator? What creator has got to do with us? And then it goes back to the origin of the creation. Then it goes, as we said, what we understood to be part of the soul of the man. I made man in the image of myself, because if you in reality look, this here has always been here, and always been in here, and always existed in totality. It's never changed. It's us who's taking more bits of its surface that it leads to manifestation of the truth, the original essence of the creation. To what extent we can go, to what extent we can understand, then it forces itself back to the totality, back to the origin. Because in all the processes that we have created all the divisions which has come from the decay of what we call nuclear conversion, there is always residual, that these residuals themselves have become the creation of new dimensions, new fields, that the matter state or the plasma of the proton and neutron or electron have to manifest themselves in respect to. So what we understand from the new physics is that the life of the creation, the cycle of the creation, is everlasting. It'll never end. And if it ends, it goes back again to the origin and it starts a full cycle. So did not need much to start this universe or universe. It's just needed a very little to see what it does. Sometimes when you stand from the point of the creator, you understand it's all a child's play. But to create it, to sustain its totality, is another dimension. The process, once it starts, will repeat itself automatically. You don't need to do anything with it, because you understand in time, if you change the field forces of the environment, you dictate the leakage, and then you dictate the central field forces stripping from themselves a higher order, which is at the center. Don't forget, go back to the original teachings. When we go back, we always said, very simple, in all the books, what we said is the principle, the center, the transition, and the matter state. Instantaneously comes and goes, they can't support the system. But this new network on the phone holds, so we don't get this connection. In so many ways, what we understand is that in a physical condition, in the totality of understanding, nothing changes. It's just that it's like an onion. You start strong in the center, and it as opens up, it just becomes weaker and weaker, but expands open. If you get an onion and you start peeling from outside, you see the outer, what do you call it, layers are very easy to peel. But as you come to the center, it becomes tighter and tighter. It's exactly what happens to the plasma of the light in the order of the creation. So your answer, or the answer to your question is a proton and electron, then in the new cycle, once they manifest themselves as a proton and electron, now they become neutron themselves. Now they start the process of giving and taking and sharing, and in that process, then they divide. They go through a cycle. And this is important for us to understand. And if you understand this, half of the problem in the present mode of physics is solved. In fact, half of the problem which gets solved is the problems we created ourselves from the beginning that we never understood. So we're solving the problems we created ourselves which didn't exist. It's what we call the Austrian phenomenon. In Austria, it's there, but you don't see it, so it doesn't exist. This is the phenomenon they work on. So those are your Austrian, you understand this very well. So it's the misassumptions which we have created. And then we build a lot of more misassumptions on it. And now that we understand the totality of it, we find out there was no such a thing. It's so simple. And the simplicity of it answers itself. Do we go back to the creator? We do. Are we the creator? Yes, because once we leave our soul from our physicality, then we become part of totality. Is that understood, Azarjan?
Mr. Keshe, yes, I understood it. So now when the soul is this neutron and then principal matter, when we access it, the soul
No.
has...
The soul is an electron which sits within the proton, but we call the totality a neutron. And when the conditions of internal work or external work changes, the neutron becomes two parts. The section which has matter state or transition state, and the seed, which is the principle that becomes the electron. And then each one has to interact with this environment. Now they have a new matter state plasma inside, and they have to interact in respect to outside their environment internally. So now you have two neutrons, one of the larger volume and one of the higher strength. One we call proton and one we call electron. And now at that point, they start the same process again, trying to centralize field forces. They can keep their existence in respect to the outside. Now you have two neutrons, one of the higher volume and the other one of higher strength, which we call electron.
Thank you, Mr. Keshe.
By the way, Azerbaijan, I hear you had a very nice communication with Mr. Dirk. He's trying to convince you he's not a dark matter or a black soul.
Yes, he indeed did that, but that's okay.
No problem. They are trying very hard in the background. And,
yeah, I sent him an answer because I didn't say anything bad in a way that, you know, because to me it's not really important what other people think about us. It's very important who we are and what we feel in our heart. I mean, if he's a true man and he believes he's a good man, so he's a good man. I mean, that's to be seen in the future. I mean, it really doesn't matter what other people think. Exactly what's going on in your heart, that's solely matter.
This is very correct. I do appreciate your way of thinking, but it shows how he's been working in the background for 10, 12 years around the foundation. Finding people to distract, finding people to discredit. And you are one of them. We've seen it with Armand the last week. He's very busy. They're very busy now. Their hands is opened up. They're trying to get in touch with the people close to the foundation, trying to do us maximum damage before the end comes. But we've been asked, and we're responding accordingly, do not discuss anything till certain moves are made. And I respect the way of your response, and be shown the same with Arman last week and the others. They're very busy trying exactly what they did. We went to meetings, we came to an agreement to develop, and then they send these emails in the background discrediting, closing, that we never got anywhere for 10 years in Belgium. Now we see the pattern of the work. But these are all good for us because it's laying out the cases for us. Any other question?
Yes, good morning, Mr. Keshe. This is Gatwa. I have a question about the electron. When it reconstitutes into a neutron, does it at some point become a proton and then a neutron, or that process is just direct?
Of course. As it comes a proton, it becomes a proton and electron. But if you look at it in essence, then the electron itself in its operation, because of being in the same gravitational magnetic field, when it releases a certain amount of its energy, then its dimension becomes the dimension of neutron. Because it has to become. We don't look at the totality, and then it becomes more strength centralized. But at a certain point, it changes. It expands to fit in. When it loses certain of its strength, gravitational magnetical, then it shows its pattern of the same path as it came from.
I'm not sure
the most
that I
important
understand.
Is, pardon?
I'm not sure that I understand completely. The question was when a neutron divides into an electron and a proton, and then the proton becomes a new neutron, and the electron also becomes a new neutron. The question is, in the process of an electron becoming a new neutron, does it at some point in that process become a proton first, and then a neutron.
No. Explain it this way. You have a package of fields that these package of fields have to centralize the field forces that they can hold on to the totality. And in that process, what we call central field forces are created. We call the principal matter. Then there are matters or gases or plasma field forces that at a given boundary have to sustain the connection to the principal in the center. Then the center, it gets to the point that it shares its field with its own internal losses that becomes of a lower order, or in respect to the environmental changes outside, releases more of its fields, that it creates an unbalance. And then the central, what we call the principal energy, it gets released, it gets torn off from the rest of what was created. And this process carries on. A proton does not become a neutron without itself establishing a central system for itself. When it does that, then at the point when it attains that process, then the whole thing starts again. Once it creates its own central field forces, then the whole process carries on.
Thank you very much, Mr. Keshe.
Thank you. Any other question? Hello? Hello?
Yes, I'm just reading in the Q&A here, Mr. Keshe. There's Nick who says, good morning. I played with the new teaching of the soul. This is from Nick M. I played with the new teaching of the soul, and as I got in the center directly above my heart, I noticed that there's a connection to the universe above my head. I followed it beyond my physicality, beyond my house, beyond the fields of the earth, and farther until I noticed the end is like a transparent sun. Could it be that that was the center of the universe, or do I imagine too much? Thank you.
I don't know. I wasn't with you, so I can't tell.
Mm-hmm.
The motions have been taught a number of techniques to be able to control. And I hear one of them has managed to get what they call the step 3 and 4. And in so many ways, when you understand the position of your soul, then it becomes easy for you to be able to handle it, to be able to not to manipulate it, but in fact to be able to add to it. The whole structure of the understanding of the soul, the position of the soul, is to understand how we can add to our soul, not in stop playing where it goes and how it does. Because if you go in that position, it means you're still in a matter state, and what you are thinking is totally different than what the reality is. You got to realize that the soul of the man in due course becomes the structure of a new star, a structure of a new solar system, a structure of a new galaxy, depending on the soul it absorbs, on the energy which carries itself. Any other question?
Yes, there's Lorink states, goes on a little bit here, but bear with me. Plasmatic scaffolding for filtering of fields. First levels, nano-coating. Second levels, creation of ganses. Third level, compression of fields for creating principal field plasma or neutron. Fourth level, and so on. Compression of the fields of the principal plasmas to attain higher and higher dimensions of principal fields. Question: can the magnetic fields, the matter level of ring magnets, be used to better than rotating motors to focus and centralize the fields of the ganses? Mr. Keshe once mentioned to put a drop of GANs on the ring magnets in the creation of the cup of life.
In so many ways, yes. I don't have my screen to share. Otherwise, I would have shown you something very interesting. A lot of you have worked with it. A lot of you have spent a lot of time making these things, but in fact, when it comes to the use of them, because you created them in a matter state, you're still looking at them in the matter state. I have a small window. I hope I can get this for you on the screen share. Let me explain this to you very simply. I'm going to share this. If I hope I don't get disconnected. This is what I was explaining to, I said always in my teaching, when I share with one, I share with the rest, that the humanity stays correct. We lost it. The minute I came to draw it, we lost it. So what is important? You got to realize the totality of the fields we produce is in reality from a dynamic angle and dynamic strength of the field themselves. It doesn't come from somewhere else. It's part of itself, which manifests itself in reality as part of the structure of the rotation of the field. We need to understand this. This sounds a long sentence, but if you break it up to small pieces, it explains a lot about the work of the universe. It explains about how motions are created and how we can use this understanding in the space technology, in the development of the space technology. When you discuss about the motion of the field, you have to understand where does the field come from originally, and by that it gives you the strength and the speed which can travel. Many scientists have spent a lot of time trying to understand this, but they have not unraveled it because they never considered that the magnetic field forces itself is gravitational to itself. And this has been the secret. I always keep on talking about taking a banana and you peel it. The outside is gravitational. The inside is internal and is gravitational. But without the skin, which bends back down itself, becomes gravitational of its own magnetical. We always consider magnetical as a magnetical and that's it. But in fact, the magnetical to you becomes gravitational to me because I receive, I absorb what you have given. And what is to me magnetical, which I give, you receive as gravitational. It's like a sound. When I sing a song, you're the recipient. If I sing a song beautifully, you get elevated to your soul and you feel happy. If I sing a sad song, in that process, it means I'm taking more than I'm giving, so I depress you. So I have created what is to me a magnetical, to you as a gravitational, but in fact, in your magnetical, I take more out of your gravitational. And this is what the part of the understanding has not been comprehended fully. And if you understand this, it solves another problem. This is why I always draw that spiral. And I draw another one next to it, that then you can understand one is gravitational or magnetical. But within that spiral, there is always the same magnetical and gravitational. And this is the way the system works. What is gravitational to you is magnetical to me. So what speed I decide to give to you is the speed of rotation which I create from my plasma that manifests itself to you. It's very electrical. Let me explain to you what I explained to others. You've seen the 4 star formation reactors, and then you've seen last week the rotation of the 18 core reactors. Where we saw Arman showed these 18 core reactors rotate in either way direction. It means man is not ready to get this one. Huh? Second time I'm trying to do it. He's not ready. We'll see. Let's see. I think it's more to do with the network than the math, but they have something to do with each other. So what you saw as a star formation and 18 cores, which in fact, if you look at it, the existence of these fields led to the creation of rotation of the field strength. But if you look at the 18 cores, this led to the size dimension. But a lot of you thought it's the first time you see the star formation with it. But if you look at the fields exactly between the green and the blue, you all have seen it. You call it spaceship because this gives that, or you call it the coils in the medical application, 90-degree coils. If you look at the 90-degree coils, is exactly what you see here. Creation of the fields and altering dictation of the speed of rotation and the size of the fields. My teaching is consistent, but it's for you to understand how it is. And if you understand one, you can transfer the knowledge to the other. So those of you looking to create a space reactor, you already, if you understood, with the 90-degree coils, you have already had a space reactor. All you need to do is to rotate it on this space. Voila. There is no need for spending so much, but you have to understand what field strength you release in the environment. The beautiful cores we saw from Arizona and the coils you've seen with the medical system is exactly the same. The core, this through a speed of rotation will create. Here, you don't need to create any motion. You can create a field forces that leads to the motion of the gases in the cores. This is a rotation in the matter state. This is a rotation in the plasma state. If you can put this inside this, then you find a three-dimensional structure as we've seen in the space technology. As I said, we bring a lot of knowledge together. We bring a lot of understanding of what you had, now glue it together to create what it is. To understand more that we can use it in a much better, easy way. Any other question?
Mr. Keshe, is this image that you just showed and drew, is that tied in with the image of the cross as we know in Christianity, this is sort of a cross of the fields that you show. It seems to be so important.
This has been referred to, yes.
And it's not just Christianity, of course, that idea of a cross.
If you look at the idea of a cross is the connection, the longer length connection to the earth, the field forces of the planet, which holds you and gives you the shape of the man. Go back into the teachings, you understand very rapidly.
So what would the cross look like in space then?
Very tight pack, plasma, till it comes in interaction. You see this, I've shown that, I wish I had a camera, I could show it to you. I've shown that to the motions. Get a small tissue and roll it up, where at the end of it, you can have a corner free, you can see. And then hold the plasma in your hand and just pull on the corner, and you see the tissue opens up. That part, you'll see on the top, the most of the tissue becomes the brain of the man. And then whatever you pulled out according to the strength of the gravitational field and the length of it dictates the environmental gravitational magnetic effect on the totality of the original plasma. So that dictates the shape of the man. This is very correct in all dimensions. But if you look at it, the 2 points of the cross on the horizontal line and the one on the vertical one, and in fact, if you look, the tip of the sword is the 4th space point. This is where you give everything to. This is where you cut, which means you put all the energy to it. And
sorry, Mr. Keshe, we're not seeing your drawing itself. We only see the spiral right now.
I'm not drawing that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Okay. So if you look at it this way, yeah, this is your spiral. This is your, what do you call, the base. And this tip is the tip of the sword, which is the gravitational field forces. Is this towards the earth, or is this towards another position in the universe? But in fact, this is to lateral pull and how you feel forced. The inner space, as part of the starting up of any dynamic plasmatic cores, very soon you'll come to understand you don't even need the cores. As the knowledge is taught more and more, you will understand that you can take share of your own soul and with it create the 3 cores. I have taught the techniques on the motions. If you look at it, you take part of your energy and you convert it into a shaking of a hand. That shaking of a hand is a lot of energy given. What about you shake hands with yourself and concentrate on that field which you gave to be grabbed or to be held in your hand? With the school of thought, understanding that your emotion dictates the positioning, so you can create the electrons out of your own soul. And then these electrons, in the manner of speaking, can become the star formation reactors. It's a bit far-fetched for you, but in time you will understand. Man can create field forces out of his own essence of creation without ever needing any jars, any bowls, any reactors, any motors. Because once you release it, it has to find a position in respect to your soul, and it starts creation of its own rotation. Don't forget, your soul is free rotating within the center of the body of the man as a field forces. It's not that your brain rotates and you get dizzy with it. So if understood, what you can take out of the sword end of the what I call this part. According to the strength you take off, you can decide that they become your rotating ball. Gives you the physicality of dimension and rotation. There is no need for a motor if the man understands the actual systematic motor sits within his own will and rotation of his own soul. This is how simple it is. Because you need only one reactor to start the rest rotating. And your soul is dynamic and is always in operation. So it's easy for you to create the others, but you have to understand, has to come to the point that you can transfer the amount of energy you need to carry. When you punch a man, when you punch a sack, when you punch a wall, when you carry a weight, these are all energies which we have not converted into the point of the use. It's just that we release it into another object. If we manage to understand how we can convert these energies in our hand, then you can release, instead of putting so much fields to hit a sack, you can release as an energy and it becomes more of a star basis. That's how simple it is. We have always used our energy in the wrong way, in the matter state, physical state, where we can understand, we can transfer the same energy through our arms in the plasmatic condition, and at the palm of our hand become the core, become the outside. And then what's inside is the plasma that you release it and takes position of the space. It needs a lot of understanding. Any other question?
Is this partly why people like to dance, where they rotate and with their arms out and whatnot?
Most probably because we find the balance of the energy which we give to the planet and what planet doesn't need to give to us. Maybe create the excessive field force. As I said, we don't need to go all the time to triage. The knowledge given is depth and depth, that it needs a lot of understanding. There's a high possibility that there will be no teaching tomorrow or sometime Wednesday. The teaching will go by you, by the knowledge seekers. I will not be present, most probably. As Armin and I, we travel back to home. So if we have that position, you have to carry on with the teaching, or at least try to discuss the developments and what you need and how you can go about to develop the technology. In time to come, we teach, in essence, the totality. And in so many ways, we can design the totality. If we understand this, then we can design through our own thoughts and the energies which we have converted into a matter state, into the state of the plasma, that we can do anything we imagine. Anything that we think is applicable to conversion of the energy of the even matter state into the plasma state. If you convert the energy which you have put into punching a bag, and we measure the strength of it, if we can convert that in our hand into the condition of the plasma, then you can see how powerful plasmas we can create. In fact, instead of the punching bag to hit, if we create a smaller field within our hand, the plasma of the energy will convert into it and it becomes part of it. And you can just release it. It's how you convert it and use that plasma to gather around the point of the center of the hand, because you already are holding it according to the vibrational motion of the blood of the man. Then you can create that ball of fire, that ball of plasma. And if you can place it right and do dictate with it, then you can create your own spaceship. That's how simple it is. This is what man never understood. Conversion, not only transmutation of element, but transmutation of the fields from one to another. We always considered potential difference. We considered what we call other kind of kinetic or whatever, but we have never considered transformation of the energy into a plasma, into the matrix. And it's time for man to start. And if you can do so, you put your hand out as you're hitting a punch back together, but put that force within your hand and concentrate in your soul and understanding that in the center you have a higher order fields from your soul into direction of the motion to the center of the hand. And it's weaker, it creates, absorbs that energy you send to hit into the plasma states. And there we are, you create a ball. And it will shine. That's how it is. This is another addition to the knowledge of the man. Conversion of the mechanical field energies into the magnetical field forces, which creates the dynamism of the plasma. Then you find out your hand becomes the core of peace, because with your hand you can hold and you can create the direction of the
Zane asks, if we have released free plasmas, how do we get them to come together instead of them just flying around?
Leave it to them, they decide, unless you have a control over it.
Lauren says, question, will we be able to create the plasma water of love to bring our hearts closer to our soul?
Why not? They call it love potion, don't they? Does it need to be in the water, or can it be in the energy of the field of love? You heard that word, it says love hurts, that song?
Mm-hmm.
It depends what you hit it with, doesn't it? Because when you receive it, it hurts. The hit of love is the amount of energy which releases, and you cannot absorb it because it's so much of it. And then you have to find to accommodate it. Going into the teaching and the respect to understanding of the motion of the fields of the plasma, or what we call magnetic or gravitation, it pushes man to the understanding of the essence of the creation and to the soul of the creator. If we understand that in essence, in the totality, in the center of the every entity which has manifested itself as a plasma, there is strength of the soul of the creator, then we understand how much as the soul of the man, and we leave the physicality of the body of the man, that becomes important for us to become part of the creator in connection to the same gravitational magnetic field string. It's not a string like a wire, it's the strength of the fields which are so fast that instantaneously you're all the time in connection and in line with the creator according to the field strength of the point of creation. If man understands this, he can travel the space of universe according to the wish of the creator. Why have I happened to be here? Because it's the wish. As you wish to be, it has been wished for you to be part of, to become to be. And this is part of the important part of the whole creation. Even though we want to be part of, we have to realize that wish of ours is part of the wish of the creator. I want to be a tissue, a cell on the arm of the man, but at the same time, using the arm, I can become the creator of the love. I can become the giver of the love. So, in a way, the cell is the man, and the totality of physicality of the man becomes the creator. If man understands in the true meaning of what I've just said, man has entered a new dimension of creation, where he understands every effort, every move, every thought of the man leads to creation of new dimension. Are we mini-God, or are we part of the God? In fact, we are the God, because in essence, in the center, we come from the origin. We come from it, because that's what, when you are a strength of one, you are the same. I made man in the image of myself. Any other question? Anybody there in the space of the universe?
Yes, Mr. Keshe, I think we're here. This is Nicholas. I'm not sure how to state my question, because I find that, you know, going between the source, if one wants to speak of the plasma state, into the matter state is so difficult even to put into words. It's like speaking of something that in a certain way doesn't have any substantial existence. So what I'm seeing here is that it is one's own elevation of the soul, which you're speaking of, or the development of consciousness. And when one's in that place, one's almost silenced or stunned or stilled. And yet it's out of that consciousness that we are able to come together as a humanity and enter into a higher state of
Have we lost him?
Probably we lost connection with him, yeah?
I think so, yeah.
Today and by the end of this week, we have by today we have asked for a meeting of all the Universal Council, Earth Council, and the Quarterly to attend a meeting for the draft of the letter to world leaders. It's important that we understand the culture in every country and every land we respond or we send a request to. It's been explained to us by the Chinese community that sending a mass letter to the president or whatever can create a field of negative response. As I said, we have to work with understanding of totality. The wish of our people in creating peace should be at a position where it can be understood by the people. We have not sent any letters out, except one or two people who have sent to their leaders. And what we ask the Chinese community, understand your culture. When you send a letter to your leaders, elevate the soul of peacefulness of the nation, and no more. But through your soul, pray to elevate your leaders, that the totality of the leadership dictates and triumphs in a way, takes over the world peace in one way or another. We emphasize on one president because that is important for us in elevating the soul we elevate the soul up to totality. When we choose a leader, it means all those who are subject are part of the totality. So, for example, as I said, for our Chinese community, do not go on a mass printing of pushing the government for peace, but understand, thank them for the peaceful condition they have created for your nation, to transfer that to universal, to the whole of the planet. Do not and understand your cultures the way you understand. We have received, we know 1 or 2 letters have been given to the world leaders, and we have received response from 1. And according to that, today, in the meeting of the Universal Council and Earth Council, we make a presentation to them that what the response is and how we're going to handle these responses. In a way, we go to the point of showing which nation, through its leader, still wants to stick with aggression and war, or which leader will choose the path of the peace and joins the peace, what we call for humanity. We have to ask the Earth Council and Universal Council tonight's meeting of what is their decision. To me, the way it worked with the giving of the key, we announced and we took position in response to what was received, that such a nation had accepted the key. I think it's good if I'm not here today in the afternoon and tomorrow sessions, because we'll be traveling, is that make a decision amongst yourself that by the time tomorrow the councils have made the decision of the text of the letter to go out, in how we are going to show. We know one of the major nations, the Prime Minister does not have time. If the Prime Minister of a nation does not have time for peace, I wonder what that Prime Minister has time for, creating war. This should be the prime position of every president, every Prime Minister, every leader of every nation, the peace to be the priority, because with it, it brings prosperity to the nation. So we have received a very interesting response from the Prime Minister of, I can say, top nations, and the excuse is very strange. The Prime Minister of one of the leading nations in the world has no time for peace. And strange enough, he has no borders to control. I'll leave it. We are setting up a structure in the back. As the letters go out from this week to different nations, we will see how the totality works. And if it's okay with all of you and Universal Council and the Council, that we publish the name of the nation, the name of the response, the person who responded, and do we go for the process of explaining how the people we have elected have decided to take, to be, no, not to be a part of peace or peace for humanity. In the coming days, when I'm here, I start deeply teaching what we call deep space protection. Deep space, what you call shielding, that in a way will dictate to us what we have to do. In the coming days, I'll be meeting with ambassadors and a couple of world leaders through their contacts, that we will state our position. In the past few days, we've been speaking to a couple of people who are influential in political scene or in the military scene. We have made it clear in one case to the military head of the army that we support your nation, we bring new technology in respect for peace. And this is what we are. We bring technology, with it we create peace, and we were looking for that. So as we receive responses from governments, we will know how the position is going to be, and at the same time, we will push for one direction. We started with the very few world leaders who will sign themselves to it internationally in their countries, and then we asked them to sign it in Haifa. So When the representative arrives, he has already signed his nation to peace. And on the other hand, members of the Universal Council and the members of the Earth Council, especially members of the Earth Council, can sign the nation languages they carry to peace, which means we transfer technology, transfer knowledge into that language.
So, Mr. Keshe, if the yes, Mr. Keshe, if the leader of the country can't go to the conference, to the gathering, can't they send representatives to carry the message officially?
Of course. They're ambassadors of peace. We'll be very, very interested to know. There are some developments, as I said, happening in the background, that if these developments actually comes to fruition by the end of this week, beginning of next week, we will see a movement towards peace, and we will see a huge move against nations who have chosen the war and everything else. I don't disclose anything because we have to wait for the sequence of events, but from what I see, the candle of peace is burning very nicely in the background. Tomorrow, you'll be given some 206 nations, if I understand correctly, to the members of Silence Group, how they're going to carry, and the rest will come to you. From tomorrow, is in your hand how you represent and how you deliver the knowledge to the embassies. Please be careful with the nation of China. They have a different school of thoughts, and we have to respect it. Do not make a mass movement, but make max appraisal of the total leadership, which ends up with presidency at this moment. But we have to understand the nation has to carry it through the soul, and understand, do not create what I call a cult movement. We are not a cult, we are a peace-loving nation, as one nation with the knowledge and technology which can bring the change. On the other hand, with the other rest of the world, it is you have to decide. Tomorrow and the day after, as I said, we start our summer holidays. In that process, please understand, you discuss how, as knowledge seekers, how people on the net, you're going to approach your government individually, world leader by world leader. Millions of you want to bombard them with whatever, it's your decision. You want to ask them, you want to put them to shame, why have you rejected? We are a peaceful, loving nation, we want to enter peace. We tell you the first one, President of Australia has rejected to attend. He does not have time. If you're Australian, you know who he is, ask him, if you don't have time for peace, what do we have time for? We received the communication yesterday from the people who have written. We've seen the response of President Obama when we gave him the road map. He came with all the excuses that he has to kill, and we've seen what he's done with the killing. He literally killed the whole nation of the United States in the last G20. So, from tomorrow, I have thought enough. It's in your hand. Come in and decide how, and live call your presidents and wait online. We want an answer. We want peace. We have to be careful. We do not pressurize to negativity. We have to pressurize that what this peace brings for us as humanity. The pressure on Earth Council, especially English speaking, will be a lot because there are many Commonwealth nations. The French will be the same, and in so many ways to the others. You have to start the process. We gave everyone 2 weeks to do whatever the Universal Council to be ready to go tomorrow morning. Hopefully they deliver you the letter they see. You can copy it, send it. There is a peace message with it. And deliver it to all the embassies and to all the national governments, bombard them. This is the data peace, we want peace. If we do not get response from the Ministers of Justice by the end of this week, we will announce the signing in public that we make him outcome out of this planet, not to physicality position. Please, one of the main targets of this peace signing has to be Israeli Prime Minister. The other one, which we have to agree with and bring into operation, is Rothschild family. Rothschild family control and make a lot of war games. They have to understand that money has to come from peace and not power position. Vatican is another one. I will deliver a copy to the Iranian ambassador for Iran. I've done that before. I gave 2 folders, one for Ayatollah Khamenei and one for the Iranian president during Ahmadinejad's regime. So, from tomorrow, when the peace movement starts, if you want to start it, and it's your jobs. Those of you who are yearning for peace and been trying to do, plaster them, please roll back to your presidents. This is done for presidents only. Don't send it. You want to sign your name, you sign. But get your world leaders to sign it. And call the palaces, call the governments. What is the response? Every day till we get the result. We want peace, and we are prepared to give you a new technology for it. We want the nation to be signed to it. But as I said, to the Chinese community, do not create mayhem for your nation. You understand your ethics of the work in your nation. Please stick to it. Elevate the soul of your leaders, but at the same time, thank them for the peaceful nation they made for you out of their leadership. Then they will walk the path of peace. Any other question?
Yes, Mr. Keshe, where can we see a copy of the letters and the communications that...
Tomorrow morning it'll be released. It'll be released to, tomorrow morning the members of the councils will attend the teaching. I'll be here, I hope to be here, but the members of the council meet, I have called for the meeting of all the 3 councils today, 6 o'clock Central European time. A copy of the letter from the Prime Minister of Australia will be given. The response will be given, and the letters, each council has written their own letter, and by tomorrow morning they will dispatch on the screen, and it's for you to go out. This is a message of peace. You got to understand, if I go any further with the knowledge disbursement, I will create the technology which is for a space, and if it's abused, becomes weapon technology. You cannot release any more information, any more knowledge into the space development without touching the protection of the field forces, which the body of the man or the soul of the man is a passenger of. And then if we do not come to an agreement, it can become used in the wrong way, but it never does, because it's not my wish. My wish has been peaceful application of technology, and we have seen it out.
Good day, Mr. Keshe.
Yes.
Is Jalal here?
Yes.
I have...
Yes.
Go ahead, sir.
Carry on.
I have 1-2 questions. Are we responsible for what our ancestors done? Because we are, in a way, we are connected, and this is, in a way, this is our wish that we have such a hostile planet with all these wars and killing.
Yes, but let me explain to you again. We are not there to blame. It's the structure of this planet which has created this condition. And by the time we take man to space, we'll change the man to a peaceful man.
You
But
always
creating peace is the problem.
you always said my wish is my command. And is that also applied to our ancestor because this was their wish in a
In
way?
so many ways, if we can explain it, maybe their wishes now we are carrying out to become.
Okay. Another question. I as a electron, and that means my soul, well, electron. It's resident in a high order from the source. So that means I am in high order than the source. Is it that true? In a way?
No, we are equal to the same. You cannot go higher than what you've been created out of.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Keshe, thank you.
You're welcome. Never feel yourself higher than the others, because that's the time exactly when you're at the lowest point. This is why I always teach so humbly and equal, but I share equally.
No, I mean what we gain from knowledge and
The same.
power.
You know, in Farsi we say, we have a beautiful expression. It says, as the tree grows and becomes bigger, as it gives fruit, the gravity of the weight of the fruit makes the tree humble, and the branches turn down humbly.
Okay, but we say it in Arabic. The students is a teacher and a half.
Actually, the student is teacher and a half because the teacher did not understand the totality of it. The teacher and the student should be equal in knowledge.
Okay, that is good.
You
Thank you,
understand?
Mr. Yes, Mr. Keshe. Thank you.
I've said this before, when I gave a lecture in South Sierra Leone University to most of the students and the lecturers and teachers and professors, where I explained the knowledge, and they were all sitting there. The head of physics, he got up and says, now we all know the same, equal. So when you share knowledge, each one takes the best out of it for what is to the benefit of themselves and the humanity. We don't have any more. We just gathered what is not put in to put a part of jigsaw in. There is so much knowledge to be shared, and as I said, my anger on Friday I stopped teaching was because I know there is a knowledge I have to teach, but I know if I teach, I create a mayhem for a lot of governments. I let the man free, but we have to have peace, that movement of motion of the souls become a motion of the peace. Otherwise we start the whole thing all over again. I can teach you in 1 second, all of you, how to feed yourself as much as you need from the structure of the universe, and fly anywhere you can. At the same time, if I do, how many of you would like to stay behind? But the problem is, we have to solve the problem with this planet first. The animals, they still have the same problem, they start killing. Before we leave, the planet has to become at peace. Any other question? Shall we
Yes,
go ahead. Yes.
Okay. Good day, Mr. Keshe. This is Valerie from Tenerife. I have a small question that goes back to last week's of teaching when you explained of uses of deuterium and tritium in the reactors. Now, unfortunately, I cannot get deuterium, but I do have pure deuterium, and my question is, how would that affect if I would use it in a?
Do you have a deuterium in a plasma form or in the liquid form?
In a liquid form, it's about 10–11%.
Okay. You have to find how to create the plasma of it. and transfer that plasma of it into the center of the core. When we speak about deuterium, hydrogen, and tritium, we're talking about the GaNs plasma condition of it, which is the field of them, not in a matter state. Because if you have it in a matter state, then you have to mix it with the liquid water, and then you still have a matter state problem. You don't elevate any higher, then you're still connected to the structure of this planet. When you understand how to create the plasma field strength and transfer that into the center of the reactors as a strength field of hydrogen, tritium, and deuterium, then you have achieved the totality of understanding. And I've taught it. Even today, I have explained how to do it. Arman goes, what? When? It was there at the beginning.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Keshe.
You're welcome. It's very easy. One of the easiest things to create and to produce is deuterium. Deuterium and tritium are one of the simplest gases in plasma field technology. I'm going to give you a hint. I hope the God doesn't take the screen off. Okay. So grab it as fast as you can before the whole thing disappears. You remember? Come on, you can get in the screen, you can sit on it. No problem. You remember what I explained? You remember? Where was the highest order? You remember you creating a box? If you get this box and submerge it in a gas of deuterium, and if you understood to place your reactor, you remember the creation of neutron? You have transferred the field forces of tritium not in a matter state into the center of the core. And that's the way. So if you are looking to load up your reactors with tritium, do not work, because if you have the GaNs, you still have the water with it. You want the plasma field forces of it. You remember 3-layer cores? If you put tritium outside and you allow it to create rotation by other materials, they come to create the field forces. And what you have in the center is the field forces of tritium as a non-matter state. And in this, when you take it out, it becomes that electron. You remember? Blessed those who understand the mystery of creation. So when you have deuterium, try to purify it to a gas, and then understand this, the process. This is why I told you I teach you about neutron and the split of neutron and the soul of the man. So what you do, you have a reactor is pure deuterium. Plasmatic, gravitational, magnetic field forces and no matter state in there. And then when you remove it, you have your reactor of that state. But you have to keep it in the dynamic position, which means you have to have a tritium and a hydrogen on either side, that they all stay in a plasma state and do not convert into it. And then when you put them in order or in different layers, you'll find out, voila, you have what you want. Are you flying it, Alma?
And this goes also for matter creation?
What? Why do you need to create a math? Yes, you can, but you have to do the reverse.
With only 2
In
reactors,
the world
like
of
Peter did.
no. Let me explain to you something else. You learned from this one how you bring the plasmatic field forces to create the field forces energy of the tritium. Now, if you do the reverse with the plasmatic fields of tritium and create a specific condition, you create the matter state of the tritium here. So one goes to the other and comes back to this. But you have to do it in reverse. I'll teach you this. I told you when I opened the book of understanding, this tritium field forces, if you do it properly, if deuterium, you do it properly, very easily. This is what I was explaining today in some private talks. If you create the GANs of tritium and deuterium, and you can put across 2 field forces, as I explained now, you put any microchip in between. Conversion of the plasma of the carbon in a crystal condition makes a solid out of every single microchip. Aircraft carriers become stone. So do aircrafts. How easily we can stop wars. And now I teach. I teach you to put pressure on governments for peace, but we can show them how they can paralyze their own system of war. When we have no tools to fight, then we start fighting. Don't forget, if you have a tritium and you have a gas of hydrogen, you know exactly what happens in between. One has to feed the other, and you remember you remove the cancer. Now you see how much hydrogen you move from the CH bond of every microchip. Gold will be there, but I don't think much of the carbon. Now you understand how the Russians paralyzed the system in so many other ways. It doesn't need a big reactor. It's the size of a ping pong ball. But in trying to reach the other, he uses a ship as a bait. But his field is so big.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Keshe. And I'm asking this because I will.
Hello?
I said I'm asking this because I would like to do like you proposed about a year ago, to approach the government with gold, to give them gold and instead of peace, in exchange for peace. Which
I'll teach you that very soon, by the end of the week, hopefully, if I remember. You always start producing gold. But don't forget, if you understood the rotation of the fields of the tritium to hydrogen, you understand the massive elemental field forces, which, if is created in the right way at the right speed of rotation, you can create gold out of tritium. All you need to do, if you have a tritium with a high speed rotation, and you have a deuterium or a hydrogen with a lower speed, the fraction and energy loss can be equal to the energy of gold or anything you like. Depends how hard you push the metal to the grinder. You know,
okay.
When you understand?
Yes.
So that's it. Now you have a higher resolution and speed of field which will come out as a tritium, and the grind is how much you push the hydrogen to push the deuterium towards the tritium. And then, do you want a little sparks or you want huge amount of sparks? You don't need anything, any other elements but these 3 more or less to create any elements in the universe. This is how elements in the universe are created. We never understood. Now we understand. You put a knife or a steel to the grinder and see what comes up, how much sparks you want to create.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr.
Keshe. Thank you very much.
I have a question.
So,
Hello?
Is not a horse also created in the image of the creator?
We all are the same. It's the image of the soul.
Thank you.
Mr. Keshe, what you've explained here with creating the field around the core, does this also apply to the health units and devices? And in
Yes,
that case,
but Dr. Rodriguez uses this very well. Yes, it does.
so why do we need then the dynamic reactors in relationship?
The dynamic reactors are needed because at the moment, as I said, part of teaching today, we still use rotating cores. If you use the gas cores, and even what I just taught about the creation of tritium and deuterium and hydrogen gases or plasma fields in a way, then you don't need anything because the body transfers energy through the same. You need to put the tritium on one side and hydrogen on the other. Whatever field is not in balance, the cancer will fly out in no time. Much more powerful. Much, much more powerful.
Then why don't we go directly to that rather than
you decide. I just inspire you.
Thank you.
Understand? You're quite welcome.
Thank you.
We are on the verge. We have shown you, a lot of you, we've been looking to make different gases of CO2, zinc oxide, and everything else. I've shown you how to produce gases of CH3. If you understood, I repeat again, you get a CH3, create a sealed ceramic box, put the CH3 here, put the same thing as you made before as aluminum plates or the gases of it, and create the field of the carbon. The CH3 will behave like tritium. Depends on how you want to extract it. Because the carbon will leak, put it in a container, plastic container, will leak some of the carbon, and then what you're going to get is H3, but because it's a gas state, it will behave as this.
Yes, I actually, Mr. Keshe, I did exactly what you said there, and the CH3 became very dark red color, but when I let it dry and thin out, it dried out and formed to black crystals, like carbon crystals.
Yes, you change it to deuterium because part of the energy is links up with a single hydrogen, which creates H2O. Somebody should have seen some water residual near your system.
Yes.
Am I correct?
Yes.
So voila, you got yourself dry deuterium.
Okay, so that's deuterium.
Yes, because you linked it off. If you understand how to manipulate CH3 and extract, you see, we created that C to absorb the H, but H is in the gas state, so it's in the plasma state. It's very easy to convert it into matter state. But if you can hold on to that CH3 and play it the right way, the deuterium, in a way, if you could create a right condition, it should be initially or partially become gray silverish color before it becomes black. If you observe that gray silverish color, that is what your spaceships will look in the future when you fly. And it's non-penetrable. Actually, if you can get that powder and get it tested, what is dry is non-destructible element.
Okay.
If you can make a solid of it, you can literally cut glass with it like nothing. Better than diamond.
Okay, thank you very much.
Shall we call it a day? We come back. We come back at what do you call it? 8 o'clock. But try to understand. After tomorrow, the peace process of giving you the knowledge is in your hands.
Mr. Keshe, 8 o'clock, do you mean we'll have an afternoon session or not today?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So bring your things. If you want to speak about the piece, whatever you do, as I said, it's possible that as you know, we're coming to 15th of July. We always we take our summer vacations and we break up till September the 15th. In so many ways, we still keep on the process of going with the teaching, but we try from now on. I've done my work. Next 18 days is your job to bring the world leaders to peace. I've shown you the techniques, I've shown you the tactics, I explained to you what needs to be done. And in the background, I still be working, but expect a huge turn of events sometime this end of this week, beginning of next week, towards the foundation. We've been told to keep silent, and then if it happens, you will understand. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Keshe.
See you in an hour and something now. Thank you very much.
Yes, it'll be nearly 2 hours. It'll be 2 o'clock CEST time. We'll start the afternoon session. And this is day 10 for Blueprint for Peace for Humanity. It's July 17th, 2017. Okay, we'll end today's session and see people later.